one of the lowest kill games, maybe the lowest kill game we've had in the entire playing stage, which is definitely not what you expected when you're thinking of this group, but that's what we got.
Exactly right. Well, Hong Kong Attitude going to ban away the Tristana this time around as Mega Esports get rid of the Gragas. Remember, side switch up. So in theory, we are going to have a bit of a change. It was that last pick that really did put a spanner in the works for Mega Esports, but I think the biggest spanner was not doing anything. As Renekton going to be banned once again. You were talking about the fact that this guy was picked a hell of a lot on this particular day a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
And is now not going to be in 2 of our games so far.
I actually think it's super interesting because Renekton coming into the day had been picked 8 times and only won 2 games. Yet the teams are now saying, you know what, he's been picked too much. Yeah. It's time to not do it. But it's because I think the setup, if you're playing well, can be so fearsome and people don't want to get snowballed on. I am actually shocked that we just saw a blue side ban of Pantheon because Hong Kong Attitude had the ability to force either a Qiyana or Pantheon first pick for themselves or force a trade of the 2 champions, which if they are proficient in Pantheon and Qiyana would be able to do so, but they kind of just opt out of that trade, maybe because they just want to do their marksman thing again, and they don't want Pantheon to be a part of it.
I think it is respect to G4's Pantheon, which was so formidable.
But HKA could just pick it.
I know, I was being a little bit facetious there. Is the Xayah going to be picked away? We've got lovers across the rift here. Keep it together, chat.
Yeah.
As the Nautilus is going to be locked in second, and we go back to Hong Kong Attitude. Ezreal. Unified, of course, is in. They started a couple of days ago with Eminem. Unified is retaining his spot, despite the fact that he was the one to pick up a loss. There we go. We'll see whether the Ez is what gets them over the line, as Ezreal Rakan is something that, you know, Warangulus is Ezreal in that Ezreal Rakan bottom lane did actually come out to a victory. It's now Mission with the Syndra, another champion that escaped the ban list, has been very popular on that one so far.
Very true. Coming into the day, there had only been 1 pick and ban phase where Syndra was not a part of it. I think part of it is the fact that you can flex it between mid and bottom lane, but honestly, it's looked better mid lane, at least in this group stage, partially because we have mid laners playing it, rather than marksman players trying to pick up mages, but still, it will give them a lot of lane presence in the mid lane.
Yep, Crash holding onto his pick. Often we do see junglers locked in the first round. Not going to happen this time, and that's why the Elise is going to join the ban list. Lloyd, though, he decided to take away the Jarvan. Just secure a pretty comfortable jungler here for the former AD carry. Now jungler once again. I believe he also played some top lane. This guy gets around the rift a heck of a lot. And with Dale there on the bottom side of the map, of course, Korean player formerly on Ever 8 Winners, was on that team that qualified to the LCK about a year and a half ago. Didn't stay there very long, but was still able to get in.
Yeah, and I think something that is a bit of an X factor for Mega Esports is the fact that Rocky, Lloyd, and G4 actually have a lot of international experience. So even though Mega Esports was Pool 3 and also loved the Jarvan Galio combo, even though they are Pool 3 and were considered by me and most others to be the underdog in this group based on the strength of the LMS and the VCS historically, the world's experience, I think, helped them in these first few days. Having Lloyd, a guy who's played so many different positions, just kind of helped the team maneuver around these really ambiguous situations, makes them stronger.
Yep. We'll see what they can do here against the Lee Sin, picked up for Crash. Crash, very practiced on this particular pick, was one of the picks that really got people excited back in 2017 when he was playing on that spring roster of Longzhu. Didn't quite work out there, but he certainly had a whole lot of hype behind him, as 3Z's Nah is going to be poking his head out here on the Rift for Game 1. The answer, though, is going to be that Akali. All the way down to the final pick is that Akali, where last game, of course, was snapped up pretty quickly by Damwon Gaming, but now this squad from Mega is looking really nice in the team fights, especially if Rocky can cause some chaos in the backline, and then you have so much control and power with the cataclysmic entrance with that combination of the Jarvan and the Galio.
And Mega doesn't want a repeat of what happened the first time they played these teams, where they had what seemed like a lot of control and then just couldn't close the deal. In this game, even though there's not 3 marksmen from Hong Kong Attitude, the Gnar split push can do similar things in the late game where it just becomes overwhelming. So I think making sure they have the Jarvan, Galio, hard engage is what they've tried to do to solve it so they can win this one.
Yeah, and speaking of hard to gauge, they also have the Nautilus there as well. So a lot of buttons that they can press to start a fight. And I like R button-based compositions. It didn't work out for Royal Youth in our first game, but that was because Damwon were just a little bit stronger.
Just a bit.
Yeah, just a little bit. But oftentimes, I mean, Detonation Focus Me was what we brought up as an example last time, and that worked out for them. So have executable compositions, and you can decide the field of battle is, I think, very, very beneficial in these tournaments that are such high pressure as we get into Game 2, Hong Kong Attitude versus Mega Esports. And for more on the draft, let's check in with Law and Mega's coach, Warlock.
Different game, different bot laner against you this time. How do you think it's going to play out?
I think there's not going to be a lot of difference because I think the ADC position doesn't have an effect on the game, at least in the early stages. So I think there won't be too much difference. Yeah.
And this time you bet on a team fight composition. Do you think it's going to be enough to beat them?
Hopefully. I mean, I think as long as our mid jungle, you know, can work their early game and mid game and control the map, I feel like we should be able to pull it.
All right. Well, thank you for the insights. Good luck on the game. Now back to you guys.
And of course, Warlock was formerly a top laner, support, and jungler for Mega Esports as well before he moved to the coaching role. So this guy certainly able to give advice on multiple positions for his team.
Yeah, thank you very much for the interview. And I think him bringing up the point of mid-jungle synergy is correct, because in order for the Jarvan Galio to not just instantly die when you jump in, since the Galio ultimate no longer gives damage reduction like it did when it was really at its height, they need to do well in laning phase, and Syndra Lee Sin, just based on champions, is a better 2v2.
Yeah.
So Mega does have to find ways to outplay, scout out Crash's Lee Sin, and then find ganks in 1v2 situations, because if it's a counter gank and the Syndra gets a kill or two, it could be really rough for G4.
Well, Pop barely missing the dredge line there on the bottom side of the map. Keep your eyes on this guy. His Thresh was fantastic a couple of days ago. Looking forward to seeing what he can do here. The all-Korean bottom lane for the Mega squad here with Duel and Pop. But so far, everything just pretty calm. I feel like HKA want to start the action a little bit earlier than Mega do this time around. Mega with a pretty comfortable 4-1 composition, but want to be getting towards those combo team fights with this Jarvan and Galio, rather than HKA wanting to get Crash around the map and really start some shenanigans.
Yeah, and HKA actually was one of the more unique teams coming into this World Championship in the fact that they so heavily all play for their own lanes. Their number of solo kills are really high, their number of isolated deaths were really high, and that's just how they often try to win. It's how they won the first game, is the Quinn side lane was able to get enough done, dying by himself and also killing by himself, that eventually the team was able to win. So it is expected that HKA will play aggressively in lane, but I don't expect them to group around objectives early.
And is that why 3Z has gone for the Summoner Aerie? We haven't seen Summoner Aerie now for a really long time.
Yeah, it's absolutely more of a lane-focused poke build. Fleet Footwork has just been so popular because it does give you the extra move speed and the extra sustain, but if he's confident in his ability to try and just get a little bit more damage in a solo kill situation, that's what the Aerie can give you. I do think Fleet is better in this particular matchup, but we'll see how Rocky and 3Z played out.
Well, you can see already it's a slight advantage as the waves are going to reset into the middle here. Rocky just hanging out in the brush, but otherwise is feeling comfortable. Boomerang's flying in. And Rocky going aggressive. Like it.
Yeah, I mean, just taking this as a microcosm of the lane, that was pretty dangerous because Lee Sin could hop over the wall, get behind his ward, and then gank him while all of his spells are down. So using all of his spells when he's that far pushed up in the lane was actually pretty dangerous. You don't see it play out in a punishing fashion, but the way he's playing the lane, depending on how they're communicating, 3Z might say, hey, this guy is being a little foolish with some of his spell usages, come gank him.
We'll see whether Lloyd can be there for that counter gank. I love that it's sort of stayed true that Lee Sin versus Akali is still something that you have to think about. Akali doesn't want to get displaced out of her shroud by a Lee Sin kick coming in, and always pre-rework Akali hated the Lee Sin, whose Tempest Cripple would reveal her.
Mega Nart down. Lloyd would walk over Ward with this gank, but it's all about trying to get the EQ and interrupt the hop from 3Z.
Yeah, greedy for the hyper is 3Z, but does get the second bounce of the hop.
So
Won't have that one now. He may have to actually flash, but the knock-up is going to come in. He's greedy. He's holding onto it for a very long time, but decides to blow it in the end. So successful gank there for Lloyd, assuming he's going to make a return visit.
Yeah, and he has a control ward down, which allows lane priority, and Rocky will probably be level 6 by the time he comes back, so that's definitely an opportunity for Mega to try and get an advantage up top lane, and they need it, because the bottom lane and mid lane are going pretty heavily over to HKA.
Yeah, Unified actually having a great time against the Korean bottom lane here of Mega. 6-0 for Lloyd, so wanting to hold on to that 100% win rate if he can. Cloud Drake is now being considered maybe another 6 straight game. In theory.
It is possible.
We didn't get to 6 last time around, but someone could have if they weren't too busy killing the Nexus. Very frustrating.
And that usually happens.
Nice scout of the week.
If a team has 5 Drakes, they probably have something else going for them that they don't need to get the 6-1 to win.
Yeah, you were explaining that as we were discussing it, and then so sadly for me, it just didn't happen.
Weird, the Triple Mountain team won a team fight.
Yeah. Quite depressing. As 200 gold is the lead here for HKA as far as these lanes are concerned. So you can see that Rocky has been able to balance things out. You mentioned things going poorly in the mid and bottom lane, but if the Akali can get out of control, that could be a massive pivot point here for Mega to play around.
Yeah, and pointing out the 6-0 record from Mega's Lloyd, they dominated their region more than any other team at play-in dominated their region, which is a blessing and a curse, because even though you're going to be confident in your ability to play, you're never in close game situations.
Yeah,
and that
fish syndrome, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, that's a totally different topic. I think big fish and medium-sized pond is like the best combination.
You think so?
Rather than like medium fish and big pond, then you just get smashed all the time by the sharks.
Yeah, that's probably bad.
Anyway.
Yeah, different conversation. I'm sorry to completely...
They're in a really small pond. And they're like a medium-sized fish. So now that they're up against other medium-sized fishies, then they don't really know how to make that combat happen. So
yeah,
I've spent way too long on this. The whole point is that they're not good at playing even games because they don't have practice with it.
Yeah, you need practice with a game that you haven't already snowballed completely out of control, is I believe what you were trying to say, but it was adorable watching you trying to get
We've got time.
Grand Entrance is not going to really be that, as the dredge line is going to land and Kaiwing is going to go down to 300 health, get out, but otherwise it is just Mega's bottom lane taking no damage and being pretty happy.
Yeah, absolutely. They've really recovered the lane that they were getting poked out of a fair bit early, but really it is now on Mega to try and make things happen. When Lloyd hits level 6, G4 would probably look to crash something bottom lane, but it is really difficult to actually pull off this Jarvan Galio against an Ezreal Rakan. So as I'm saying what they should do, I actually think they should go top lane onto the Flashless Gnar.
Yeah.
So that's what I would expect them to do next.
You can see as far as gold is concerned, it is in HKA's favor, which is what you'd expect given that what their comp can do in this early game. As Rocky does some back flipping over towards 3Z, but 3Z not going to have any of it. Still down 15 CS though against the Akali. And when we talk about matchups, range is often something that we have to highlight. So shout out to Rocky for being able to play this lane so comfortably, but without the flash does give 3Z a few less options when it comes to how aggressively he can play and the amount of zoning he can put onto Rocky.
Yeah, Crash is going to walk right over a ward, which if Mega wanted to be patient... if Lloyd was on top side, this would be such an easy 3v2 because the Galio was actually missing right now.
Yeah.
But Lloyd did show on bottom side, which is why Crash is feeling safe right here. He does not, of course, know that he's on a ward.
Well, Lloyd's going to use that extra information he has, going to move towards the mid lane here. Making a bit of a beeline towards the top side of the map in case Crash is going to stick around for longer. I have a feeling he's not going to be there in time as G4 going to get knocked around a bit there by the spears and the scat of the week. As Crash and Lloyd are going to butt heads, but 3Z gets a bit of lane priority and will move to the river first. Sonic Wave not going to find any of the targets, and no vision available. Scuttle Crab goes over to Lloyd, and now Mega move into the jungle of HKA. I like this. They managed to hit these spikes, grab those R buttons that they were looking for, and now they're putting the pressure on, understanding power spikes that wouldn't necessarily be evident if you look at how the lanes are going.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you just look at the jungle right now, the fact that he's delayed this blue buff for so long after the Scuttle Crab was taken was because he showed so much respect towards the Galio and the Jarvan, since that's exactly what they want to do. Even though they don't have the full items on the Galio or the J4 yet, the fact that they have their ultimates means they wanted it. And all it took from HKA was a little bit of patience. They could still get their blue buff, and they're completely fine to keep scaling.
Yep. I think it's really cool when teams play towards their opponent's win conditions as well as their own. Denying what your opponents want to do is really, really important in League of Legends, and doesn't happen enough, in my opinion. So Mega, of course, want to get their Jarvan and Galio around, so if you just avoid those guys, things looking pretty good here for HKA. So we'll see where they can start some fights here, as we've got an Ocean Drake spawning in 10 seconds. That might be the next port of call, although there are on the way pings towards Shelly, who's been alive for 30 seconds.
Yeah, so the question will be whether they abandon the Ocean Drake or go straight for the Rift Herald, because you can argue that an 11-minute Ocean Drake wouldn't be worth taking.
Yeah.
Instead, what happens is Mega's just getting the Ocean Drake with no Rift Herald priority whatsoever.
And in my league, that would be a suboptimal play, Jat. In my experience, I've been told a few times that this particular Drake take, not so good.
So we'll see if this ends up happening, but now this side of the map should belong to HKA. What I don't like is the fact that the Rakan is still running up the jungle right now. Note that the Ezreal with the smaller circle can also teleport back up if they decide to go for the Rift Herald.
Well, Jeff.
I'm learning all the new buttons. I realized I used the big circle when I should have used the small circle.
No,
we also have the arrow because they should be going in that direction towards the Rift Herald.
Yep. Okay, well, at the same time, Mission is going to be throwing some spheres around. Thank you very much. LEC Studio here in Berlin.
I love the positive reinforcement. It really makes me want to draw more.
I kind of want you to draw more. Yeah. But like, let's just chill for a second because we're professionals here. We don't like to throw out all of our tricks at the very beginning. As 3Z now with a bit of a minion wave to deal with. He's okay though. 20 CS is still the advantage for Rocky, but he's been ahead for quite some time so far. Mid lane's great here for HKA though, as Mission CS numbers are good, and the Luden's Echo has now come in, so he can clear waves very quickly and maneuver around this map as Rocky and 3Z. 3Z probably has to be more careful than this, because the amount of burst damage with that perfect execution is going to be frightening. It'll be all right for the moment as Galio.
Whoa, that's the direction.
3 members, exactly. That was a Justice Punch. Yeah, going somewhere.
Proto Belt Galio is actually very powerful, which is, I think, maybe why HKA didn't decide to all in that, but G4 didn't necessarily have everyone there, and I have a good reason to draw this time.
Okay.
You can see, actually, the Xayah has to keep moving up and down the river because there's worry about the Rift Herald. Since the Ezreal has TP, he doesn't have to make the long trek towards Rift Herald if they decide to fight. So this is telling me that Mega actually does care about the Rift Herald, and they're ending up actually ceding some bot lane control because of it, since Dale's teleport is down.
So I'm just mystified at how incredibly talented you are at utilizing the arrows and the circles. It is going to be Crash heading towards this this Rift Herald, and as if he was listening, going to utilize that added advantage as the double stun comes through from that Scat of the Week from Mission. Love it. Perfect execution top side of the map, but misses the 3-point. And has to flash, survives in the end. And look, as long as you land enough buttons, that's the result. So Rocky, really nicely done. Q gets in there and Crash will execute him, but we could have cut the video a little bit earlier, and therefore Rocky still looks pretty good. Lloyd gets towards the top side of the map as well and will defend this outer turret.
And that ended up being the latest First Blood at Worlds so far, but we talked about the Airy from the Gnar versus maybe Fleet Footwork for a little bit more sustain, and Rocky pokes him to a point where he can just decide to all in. He does have the flash on the Gnar, and then right here, missing the skill shot there actually ends up costing Rocky his life because it means he takes another turret shot, and it gets him low enough for Crash to just run at him. Oh, the minions didn't cooperate.
Yeah.
And he dies. It might have been better. Nah, he was dead.
I mean, I wouldn't nitpick the end of that because honestly, I think enough went wrong at the beginning for that not to be all that relevant. So Mega's duel will move down towards the bottom side of the map. You notice I'm not calling him Dale anymore because my accent just doesn't allow for me to really honor his name enough. So duel is going to be what I'm going to be going for, guys. I understand that Dale is closer. It's just a little bit difficult for me, chat.
Hey, I would...
Whoa, no plates at all.
I was struggling with the Ananasek word all of yesterday.
Ananasek?
Yeah.
Law taught me how to say it a little bit better. So I was.
Did you hear the story about the origins of his name and how the Cyrillic alphabet pronounces H's like N's?
No, I didn't hear that story, although you did give a bit of a Cyrillic alphabet lesson yesterday.
Yeah.
I tuned out.
You can check the VOD.
Okay, well, I certainly will. That's my homework, because Unified's homework is staying alive. Bottom side of the map, Dale just going to kill him 1v1.
That is something that should never happen to an Ezreal.
Yeah, we weren't commentating it because we thought it was just a trade,
I thought he was just going to shift away.
Yeah.
So, dying to a Xayah who doesn't have to burn flash, not that great, but they're going to try and make a move back.
Then the storm comes in. Blake Call is fantastic. There was so much burst damage as Flash has to fly out of the way, and Kaiwing going to be there just to charm them all up with the quickness.
Now they wanted Jarvan Galio because they know it's a flashless lead.
Yeah, Lloyd gets in there. Cataclysm. The Cataclysmic entrance is in fact in there as well. As the True Shot Barrage flies through, gets a couple, but not going to keep these turrets alive. As Unified with full health isn't going to be able to save his turret. Nicely done there from Mega. I don't think G4 was all that necessary, but it looked cool. Yeah,
he gave Lloyd the confidence and positive reinforcement to go and make the play. He said, jump in there, I got you.
And that's exactly what Warlock was talking about, mid-jungle synergy. And I think emotions are almost as important as gameplay, so I love that you bring that one up, chat.
All right, now they don't have Galio ult for Drake, but it'll be okay.
How are you saving this? How are you saving it? As HKA, they are at least holding full control as far as vision is concerned around this Infernal Drake. The first one that really means anything this game. We've had a cloudy one and an ocean. So Infernal Drake definitely pretty coveted here at 16.5 minutes as Crash is going to land the Q. That's a great knock up there from Lloyd. I like that he walks back a little bit, gets the knock up on the way out to stop Crash from following up as, okay, walks into a sphere. That's bad. Oh, the extended range so good from a couple of patches ago as Crash now caught out of position. The unleashed power, is it going to be there? No, it's not, as Crash is just going to fall. And now G4's got amongst it. Kaiwing has to get out. And that is just a 1-for-0. Crash going too far.
It's so hard to remember that stopwatch exists in the early game, because even though it's been in the game for like 2 years, you could absolutely tell that caught Crash by surprise.
Yep.
And it is why Lloyd's alive and Crash is dead. It delayed long enough, it kept Lloyd alive, and now, even though they still don't have most of their ultimates other than Akali, who's top lane without TP, they can again start looking towards the Infernal Drake.
Well, G4 was waiting in that brush, but they decide not to actually go for any fight. 5 members of HKA are in this area, but they still pull away from the Infernal Drake. Top side of the map, Rocky, without a teleport, is going to be knocking on the top outer turret store. And that means that HKA should have been able to get the Drake a long time ago, right?
Most likely, but they wanted
to be there.
They want to confirm 3Z ran all the way down.
All right, play it by the numbers. They'll trade an Infernal Drake for the outer turret on the top side of the map.
Yeah, that was actually really atypical for HKA because throughout so much of the regular season, they didn't group for objectives and they just rely on individually outplaying people. However, this is a game where Unified got solo killed and 3Z got solo killed. So they do have to kind of pivot the way they're playing and think about grouping a little bit more, because if they want to play this side lane, just farm forever play style, they're losing it. And the Jarvan Galio threat on the sideline is kind of ever present and would be able to stop them from outplaying even if they get a 1v1 that they can win.
Well, Shelly is about to clock out, actually. There's a minute and a half left before Baron is going to spawn, but she is eventually taken here. Mega going to trade for that Infernal Drake, eventually getting themselves their objective. As finally, it is going to be taken down here by Lloyd. He has his Cinderhulk completed, and I actually really like this. Rushing towards the Gargoyle Stone Plate feels fantastic when you have a Galio, because it's like you've got old Galio, because you press your Gargoyle Stone Plate button once you're inside your Cataclysm, and you feel so much more tanky. So really cool seeing a bit of the Galio of the past represented here based on the itemization.
And then the Galio can do the damage that you're lacking.
Yeah.
Because you've got full take sharpen.
It's incredible. And because, yeah, the extra numbers, because you can't taunt flash anymore.
Yeah.
They're
just making up for each other's.
I know.
Each other's weaknesses.
We were and this all goes back to Warlock again, talking about mid-jungle synergy. It's fantastic. It's like there's nobody else on the team. Beautiful. We just need a little love heart. Can you draw that?
I don't think that's why they made this, but mid-jungle synergy.
Yeah.
That is not hard.
Look, I appreciate the effort. That was beautiful. That was beautiful.
It's no longer mid-jungle synergy because the AD carry and support are mid lane. As should be done at this stage in the game, but appreciate the call-out.
Yeah. Well, Gargoyle Stoneplate, like we were talking about, has just been completed. I believe that was a broken stopwatch turned into a Gargoyle Stoneplate. So Lloyd hadn't been home in a while.
Yeah, wow.
Hope he said hi to his parents.
Always do that.
As Unified clears up the rest of those minions. Having a look at this time last game.
And this
Not
is
big numbers, Jack.
It's the way these teams match up. So you can see the play-in average. This is combined kills per minute. The play-in average is 0.7. Some regions and teams are actually over 1 coming into this World Championship, but these two teams have such low conflict. We may see it here as they've all finally grouped together for this Rift Herald, or we may not.
Yep. And I like how Mega have been sort of defined as this team that capitalizes on mistakes. And that's how they play the game. And that's why, when we saw this matchup last time, they didn't do anything. Because HKA weren't making enough mistakes for Mega to understand what to do next.
Yeah. It's one of these things when you're trying to look at the stats of the team, you kind of have to ask yourself, okay, why is this team's combined kills per minute high? Or why does their early game look so good? And sometimes it can be the environment in which they are playing.
Yeah.
So HKA and Mega both play in very bloody, aggressive regions where other teams are constantly asking for fights. So they've kind of adapted this style where they know how to prepare for the fights, they know how to counter gank, they ward, they see it, and they can generate advantages off of predicting the other team. However, when two of those teams meet up against each other, if neither one of them are most standardly the initiator at even or negative gold leads, you end up getting games like this.
Yeah, it's a bit of a stalemate, but thankfully Mega this time do have some options. Duel doesn't have that many, but at least the Featherstorm one is going to be enough to save his life. But now, pretty key cooldown is going to be missing from the Xayah. But yeah, I think this time around we've got different enough team compositions where we can look at Mega and say, if you're not trying to find these fights with your Jarvan Galio combo, then you're making a mistake. So proactivity is going to be necessary for this Mega squad.
Yeah, the nice thing, though, is they have a pretty good fallback pattern with the Xayah, especially having the 2 kills early. And this could just be another solo kill.
This is starting a fight. Dredgeline's there. One of the skill shots has got a hit, and Pop is going to pick up the kill.
A 3v1 solo kill. But really, Rocky started that off, may have been able to finish it on 3Z, and then the rest of the team just guaranteed it. So if the Akali keeps getting ahead, that'll secure Mega side lane pressure. With the Xayah having such strong CS and 2 kills, that gives them late game damage. And then the Jarvan Galio not falling behind gives them strong initiation. So even though we're harping on the slowness a little bit, I don't think Mega needs to be in a rush for this game. Once they hit IE on Xayah is really the time they can start doing stuff, and I think that'll naturally line up with them being able to go and do Baron.
Yeah, and I think they understand that as well, because they even just gave up an Infernal Drake, thinking that regardless of whether or not we have that, we have a composition that is just going to be able to do more things in the later stages of the game. They're gifted over the second Ocean Drake. Seems like they really like these ones, as we're playing with the minimap once again. Where are we going, Jack?
Well, okay, I meant to do the solid line.
Okay.
They're splitting the map. If you just look at the color of the wards on both sides, and it's because they gave up the turret in the top side, they're going to try and get control of it back, but they have to be very careful in face-checking this jungle.
We'll see where the G4 is going to be collapsed on here, as HKA will have that opportunity, given their vision that you so beautifully highlighted. Now Lloyd is patrolling around, wanting to destroy all of those blue dots. And now a reset is going to come in from HKA. They still had a couple of control wards there in their back pockets, but with the map getting a little bit darker. Wanted to go back, get some of that money turned into items. Morellonomicon completed here from Mission and does have a stopwatch still yet unused. Unified with those couple of items that Ezreal's really, really love is we've got some circles also coming in on the items on the other side. I was getting to those.
Those are the power spikes that you should care about.
So Morellonomicon power spike, something that I feel a little bit uncomfortable talking about, and the dash cannon plus the Luden's Echo coming in for G4. High damage build out from the Galio and the triple items that we talk about all the time from Xayah. See, I got there. It's just, there's a lot of items.
I just helped you along. I mean, I didn't even have to contribute to the conversation. I just started pointing the stuff.
Are you just going to be silent for like most of this broadcast and start drawing?
Just in the middle of the team fight, I'm just squiggly lining everywhere. It's like, I swear, that's where the Akali went.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a history.
I'm going to be very, very confused throughout most of this. It's like hard mode play-by-play commentary. I'm very much looking forward to it. But to catch you guys back up, it's about 3,000 gold, the lead for Mega as we get towards 25 minutes. This was about the state of the game last time these two teams met.
And actually, I think it is looking better for Mega this time, mostly because HKA doesn't have that side lane power that they had in the previous game with the Quinn. So if Mega can find the right fight, it could be big. Jarvan's a little too far ahead, because even though they could Jarvan Galio, the rest of the team wouldn't be there for the damage, but now is the time they're setting up for Baron because they hit the IE.
Yep. And they've got a heck of a lot of vision around this area as well as G4 just zoning with that taunt available. Dale there with Unified as they trade about the same, but that True Shot Barrage is going to make it much better for Mr. Ezreal. Close to Blade of the Ruined King, but still not quite there yet. Having the Iceborne Gauntlet, we've seen Trinity Force be a little bit more popular recently on the Ezreal for that bit of extra punch in the 2-item spike.
Yeah.
Unified wanting to have a bit more control, and I can understand that when he has to get away from an Akali. Yes, it's not going to help. The armor doesn't really do anything, but slowing her down, that's going to be a little bit more helpful.
Yeah, Akali does end up doing a little bit of mixed damage, so it's not completely lost. Has some AD and AP ratios as well. That's why the Gunblade is so good on Akali in general. But yeah, I can see him just trying to kite out the Galio Jarvan, but as you mentioned, will definitely make him lose the straight-up duels with Xayah.
No pun intended, of course. Also, he has to self-heal. Throughout this entire game, Kaiwing is going to be diving in with the Grand Entrance, and Crash and 3Z also going to be trying to lock up the backline of Mega, and they'll need to do that in multiple different timings throughout a team fight because of the Featherstorm that Xayah has available to her. Certainly has been something that we've been talking about a lot so far. This play-in stage, as Mega are just patrolling around, making sure that they have sole control of this
target ward.
Yeah, they need to kill that.
If they can get that, that's
you
actually
could just
really
set
big.
the ward right there if you wanted to. But
there's like 6 wards on the screen.
Very low. The fight is in now as the Grand Entrance going to be answered by the heroic one, and maybe that one's going to be Featherstorm timing is brilliant. Oh, Jewel flashes, gets the recall on the feathers, but in the backline, Mission is going to get taken down. Rocky diving throughout this fight as G4 doesn't find the Winds of War, but does he have HKA where he wants them so far? It's 4 versus 3, but the Mega Nard's in, stopwatched so stunningly from G4, gets a little bit of a taunt on the Mega Nard, but he's so healthy as Rocky dives on through with the Shuriken backflip and survives the turret shot. They managed to get the execution, and now Mega are going to back away.
Rocky weaved that final Akali E in so tightly to actually win the fight. The margins here are incredibly small, and I think it's so impressive that Mega are the ones individually outplaying HKA to get the advantage in this game. So watching the start of this fight again, it was a battle over vision. Daewoo was trying to hit that control ward, but unbeknownst to them, they were sitting on vision, which allows 3Z to go in there, and Daewoo's taken very low before the fight even starts. The Q lands, perfect timing on the Rakan ultimate, sorry, the Xayah ultimate, then he goes in. But the rest of this fight is very interesting because one team has a marksman and the other doesn't. So even though G4 is very tanky, feeling very healthy, doesn't have the sustained damage, and it takes a little while for his team to regroup, and Rocky needs to get his energy back on Akali, but they buy just enough time, hook into E, waits out the flash, and then goes in to pick up the final kill of the fight.
Yeah, and even Kaiwing landing that Grand Entrance just not quite enough to lock down the Akali. So slippery is Rocky here is doing his very best to really control this game for Mega. I feel like so much has hinged around Rocky this game, which is so cool given what we saw from this matchup last time around. It was 3Z being basically the one man on his team who had the lead. This time he's playing more of a team fighter, and as you can see, still pivotal to this squad, but Mega were the team that were able to win out in the team fight.
Yeah, and I want to see what happens now that he has the frozen mallet completed in his items, because there it is. I didn't
See it, Jack. Come on.
You're making it more than it is. You don't need to comment every time I draw something on the screen.
Just getting rid of little circles.
Because it is actually a point where Gnar ends up getting very powerful. He does a lot of percent health max damage with his W, and if he can actually get the side lane advantage on Rocky, HKA can look to do what they did in their first matchup between these two teams. But if that doesn't happen, this triple Ocean Baron setup is going to be the play Mega just keeps running over and over again.
Exactly. You can start it, you can pull away, you can get all of that health back, and then you can rinse, repeat, do it all again as G4 is going to wander over this very cheeky ward. This ward survives more than it should.
Oh, not anymore.
As the blue ward is going to be thrown down. HKA do find a decent true shot barrage, but now they know the location of Unified making his way in. Couple of key flashes not there for HKA on Mission and on Unified. Would be a dangerous fight, but on the other side of the Rift, Mega have lost it on Rocky, Lloyd, and Duel. Not really what you want to have as G4 just patrolling the Baron pit. Side waves are pretty even at the moment, but I think this ARAM is probably something that both teams need to tidy up as far as side lanes are concerned. Lloyd eating some honey fruit, even walks back, bit greedy for the last morsel.
I think the more important thing is actually the wards inside the HKA jungle. If those control wards are up, it's much safer for them to face check into the Baron area. Even though it seems like Baron sometimes is the only thing you need to clear vision around, it's actually the approach to Baron where you need to clear the most vision, because then a team won't even be able to get in range when you start. All these teams seem very terrified, for good reason, of 50-50 Barons, and you can prevent that from even happening if you actually clear the opponent's deep wards within their jungle, which actually Mega just did. So if a Baron Forcer fight happens, it's more likely to be now.
Yeah, I feel like this has probably been the worlds where we've been avoiding the most 50-50 Barons thus far, as there's another cheeky ward in this Baron pit. Will eventually get taken down there as the control ward comes in relatively late.
But it's still going to force the fight.
Yep, half the health bar now on the Baron, but the turn is going to be in depth. Charge comes down, only gets Kaiwing as Lloyd looking for Mission. Cataclysm dives on top. There's the heroic entrance, but I don't know whether it's great when Lloyd is already dead. The taunt is brilliant though. Big Mega Gnar as the Featherstorm gonna try and avoid. Kick back there onto Pop, and Duel is gonna go down. HKA getting them one after the other. Pop is going to be the next to go down, and now G4, the last remaining Gargoyle, and Mega. They tried to go for it. They tried to initiate what they wanted, and HKA had the answers just as much into the flash, but they want to kill him, and they will do it. The ace comes through, and Hong Kong Attitude should be able to get the Baron now.
And even though wards on the approach to Baron are important, the absolute really most important ones are the Baron itself, as was proven in this fight. But the rest of the fight was HKA dodging the Jarvan Galio initiation so well. The Jarvan was taken to basically no health, did no damage, and then the Galio ultimate was actually just stopwatched by Mission, those pesky stopwatches. So once again, Mega can't get the Baron, much like the last time these two teams played. So HKA is very spread out here, and when the peel happens, they're just trying to pull off. Lloyd tunneling on the one Cinder on the side of the fight was a big mistake. Then 3Z comes over the wall, and Daewoo just kind of panics here because he's way further forward than he wants to be. He had to juke one way for the Kron, the other way for Gnar, and then Featherstorm backwards.
Yeah, the Featherstorm backwards was definitely the big problem there. I didn't notice that the first time this fight happened. That possibly could have been a little bit better there for them with the Blade Caller having so many more feathers to pull back, but hindsight is 20/20, and now Mega are going to have to look for the future to try and tidy this one up, because HKA finally have themselves a gold lead. Having a look at the gold graph, it would certainly be like HKA have finally poked their heads out of water.
Yeah, and just drink this in for a second. At 33 minutes, the Lee Sin did the most damage in a team fight.
Yeah, wow, Crash.
That's very, very rare.
I don't even know how that happened.
He must have got, we may not have seen it, but a multi-kick through, because the kick can end up doing a huge amount of damage if you get multiple knockups on it.
Well, there was a lot of stopwatches and feather storms and things like that. I believe Crash held onto it and then just booted Pop through the team, and of course does damage based on how healthy the person you kick is. And he's got a bit of health on him, does the Nautilus. Like it. Well, True Shot Barrage comes in, gets a couple, but you can see this tower not going to be long for the world. And as we were talking about, that gold graph is indeed, finally, HKA get up from the depths.
Yeah, and Mega really showing an inability to take their small leads into advantages if the other team isn't opting into fights against them. HKA has done a very good job of just kind of sitting at the back, trying to farm up, and then finding the right opportunities. And now Mega, again, is kind of put in position where they want to force. All that HKA is doing is walking up the cannon minions, utilizing their Baron range, and slowly chipping down the turret.
And you can see, look, their carries have massive amounts of damage availability. We've got a Rabbidan's Death Cap. We've got 4 items on the Xayah. This Mega squad should be able to find a team fight that they're looking for, but it's misexecution in the last fight that's really putting them behind. And now HK is splitting the map and denying that attempt at the next Wombo combo from this Mega squad. And 3,000 gold is now the lead. It's only extending. Remember, Mega were only able to get that to about 4,000 in their favor, and now it's HKA really flipping the script on this game, much like they did the first time these two teams met.
Yeah, and now they have absolutely no vision in the jungle whatsoever, so trying to get a flank engage, which is what I think they really need, is difficult. Still 42 seconds on this Baron as well, which is already a very positive power play. HKA just looking to continue.
Nice double stun.
Oh, there it is.
Very, very low. There's another Cataclysmic entrance, but Lloyd going to put it somewhere where we're not going to get any knockups. It's just used defensively. And if that Scat of the Week had have landed, it might have been a dead Jarvan. Still relatively tanky, but it did cost them the inhibitor turret bottom side of the map, and they're just bleeding objectives now. As Mega, they can't play against the maneuverability of Hong Kong Attitude, because they start their combo, they look for it, and then there's Arcane Shift, there's Safeguards, there's Grand Entrances, Battle Dances.
Speaking
of which, we're diving into the backline now. The quickness is brilliant, but the taunt is even better. G4 getting the work done, takes down Mission as the dive into the backline. Crash gets one off the end as Pop is going to do exactly that. And the turret is going to join in this fight. Blade Caller doesn't get any joy. It's back to the fountain for the majority of Mega, and Kaiwing now is going to be tanking up this turret. They'll ignore the backdoor bonus and get rid of that one in the mid lane. A chaotic fight, but definitely okay for HKA.
Yeah, somehow it ends up just being a 1-for-1, but Mega just kind of tired of letting the Baroned up minions beat down their turrets, decide for an all-in initiation, and since Mission was already flashless, they're able to get the kill on him this time. And here again, 6 Drakes, but the more normal ones you're going to see 3 on Ash Team.
Yeah. Let's have a look at this one again, because there were a lot of things done and not a lot of time.
Yeah, so we're going to ignore the Akalinar 1v1 on the side of the map and then just watch the initiation from HKA. Really, I think was just trying to buy time for the turret, and at the start of this fight, the fact that Daewoo is always low at the beginning of these fights, and the fact that Crash keeps landing these multi-man Lee Sin kicks is really what's giving HKA an edge in these team fights. I think compositionally, like, if Daewoo could not get poked out at the start of the fight, his Xayah would do much more of the damage, especially when Mega's able to kill Syndra, but Crash is doing enough work and they're landing enough poke onto the Xayah.
Yep, 3,000 gold is still the lead though, so Mega at least stemming the bleeding for the moment. That BF sword probably going to turn into the Bloodthirster for the double lifesteal build on Duel's side, and I like that a lot. Given the fact that he has been spending a lot of his time on very low health, you may as well get that extra lifesteal so that all you need is a minion wave to keep yourself healthy. I think talking about keeping yourself healthy when you've got 3 Ocean Drakes is a little bit insane, but he needs all the help he can get, apparently, Jake.
It keeps happening. I mean, the 3 Ocean Drakes can be extremely good for sieging situations, but for the most part, Mega hasn't been able to work the sieging situations, take Pokken back off. It's either kind of all in or all out, so they're ending up to get very few benefits from these triple Oceans.
Oh, Crash now. He's just moving up in amongst this minion wave. Feeling very happy as this Lee Sin, because he's been doing the majority of the damage for this squad.
Somehow.
Yeah, I don't know how, but look, I just quote what's happening, Jap. You're the one that has to explain it. Sorry about that.
It's because of the kicks.
But they are pretty pivotal, and we've got 6 items now completed for Unified. So this is about as strong as HKA are going to be in this game, and it's going to be Mega that are going to be augmenting this engage build more and more as this game goes on. So So HKA looking to try and find the opening, the opportunity.
Might have a flank finally.
Yeah, there's the knockup. Looks for Unify, but doesn't get there as now it's just Lloyd by himself on the back line. No heroic entrance going to come in there as Lloyd just left on his lonesome, but he's not taken down just yet. 2 kills there for HKA though, and Lloyd was ignored. They just killed everyone else. We've got the instant interrupt on the heroic entrance. Dale now just in the backline trying to survive. He's done it for quite some time, but now Lloyd, no damage. That's the ace, and it's clean for HKA.
Mega fall apart down the stretch, and HKA just kind of wait for Mega to try and engage on them. This is going to be the game. 2 games in a row against Mega. They eat the early game deficit and come back in the late game.
Yeah, it feels like 2 almost identical games with very different team compositions,
Yeah.
but the tail of the tape is basically exactly the same. The Nexus will fall down, and Hong Kong Attitude are going to draw first blood here for Group C.
Oh, and that is got to be a crushing defeat for Mega, thinking that they were so close to the 2-0 on day 1, to then be up again on the second day they have played, and to be staring at a 1-2 record will be devastating for Mega. On the side of Hong Kong Attitude, though, they are now 2-1, which at least guarantees them a tiebreaker to make it in to the next stage.
Remember, it was 1-1 for everyone here, so if we do have history repeating itself for Group C, it will be once again one of those 3-way tie situations. The moment things just need to go exactly the same as they did from that first time of asking here for these groups.
So far they have.
Yep, exactly right. And it was slightly differently based on, I guess, where they played around, but the tale of how the holistic teams performed was the same. It's so funny. It's sort of playing around 3Z the first time, and then him being more of a team fight facilitator, and Crash doing a hell of a lot of the work there as far as the team fights. Really cool stuff to see this composition played in a way that I wasn't necessarily expecting from HKA.
I think a lot of times in these international tournaments, the team you see on day 1 is very different than the team you see the next time they play on the stage, but in this instance, it ended up being very similar, right?
Yeah.
I think Mega was unable to kind of regroup and find exactly what went wrong with their Baron setup. It still didn't work. It was very much the same story we saw last time, and HKA, I think, ended up just being the more adaptive team, because they're the ones that didn't get the individual outplays like they're used to doing in the LMS, and were still able to find victory.
Yeah, and Mega still not necessarily looking like the team that they were later in the day. So maybe slow start.